There has been a season of Doctor Who, and we are back to talk about it.
Has there been a season of Doctor Who? Has there? I didn't realise that. I've been quite happy. So I assumed Doctor Who wasn't on.
Well, there's been a season of Doctor Who and an entire anniversary, which we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are your feelings overall on this season? Because I know before going into it, I'd say we were both pretty hyped. I liked the vision, at least. I thought Shooty was an inspired choice.
Yeah, casting of Shooty Gatwa was good. I enjoyed that a lot. Millie Gibson I was quite excited for. I liked the look of their chemistry. I thought they were going to be a great pair together.
Yes, yeah.
I was on board with Russell coming back because I sort of bought into the hype of... Not that obviously I was like, oh, and now the show will be good. I just thought, oh, maybe there'll be a bit more of a competent handling of like relationships and stuff. We said it previously in like our speculation stuff. So, I don't know. I was excited.
How do you feel now? Yeah, I don't know, it's a tough one because I think this season's a very strange one to dissect because individually I like a lot of the episodes on their own, but together as a season it doesn't quite flow.
No, I'd agree with that.
There's a lot of experimental episodes, a lot of episodes that are trying to do their own thing, and I think, you know, if they were in a regular 13 or 12 episode season or whatever, they would stand out, like 73 Yards. But when you have back-to-back episodes like Boom, 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble, that are all doing stuff so different, it is sort of hard to get a grasp of what this era is trying to do.
I'd get on board with that, definitely, yeah, because it's like, basically just echoing what you just said there, it's like, there was so much variety, but I feel personally that the variety came at a cost of the show's kind of, not identity. You know, it became a Disney Plus show. This season is very much indicative of that, calling itself season 1. You know, it makes sense in the branding. Why would you put a show with one season on Disney Plus and call it Series 14? It doesn't make any sense. So I understand all that. And it just feels like the show they sold wasn't a show that at least Doctor Who fans really recognised as the traditional, like, or not even traditional, like a new version of it. It felt like we didn't recognise that as like, oh, this is our show still. And I don't think it sold itself to the new audience to saying like, oh, this is what Doctor Who is like. It'd be like trying to say Flux is what Doctor Who is like every week, and it's like, no, Flux is like an oddity, you know, like Flux is a unique take. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I feel like it was a gamble to present the show in such a way as they did. I don't know if this is the direction we'll continue going in. Right now, I don't think there's any audience is really gripped for this new era. And there will be some. Season 1, I don't think it was a very good showcase for what Doctor Who is actually like. I think it was more of a showcase of like, let's see what we can do with Doctor Who and what we can change about Doctor Who, if that makes any sense.
It's weird because I think if I hadn't seen season 1, one of the things I'd probably want would be more experimental ideas. Because I'd say that episodes like Space Babies and Rogue are your traditional Doctor Who. You know, Space Babies isn't that great, but you know, it is sort of your typical RTD opener. It's a bit more light-hearted, silly, still your classic Base Under Siege type story.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's weird. This season didn't feel like I didn't really know what it wanted to say. And also about it sort of reinventing itself. It's kind of weird that it sort of had that approach throughout up until the finale, and then it was just, do you remember classic Doctor Who? I was like, what? Well, that's jarring. Hey, look, we're in the memory TARDIS.
Yeah, I saw a great point someone put. It's like, this show was really trying to be a breakaway from the past of the show, and this season was like trying to differentiate itself from all of Doctor Who. But by doing that and calling itself season 1, like we said, like what I said, it's like your new audience has no idea that this is so radically different from what Doctor Who is normally like. It's not like they're used to this, so they're immediately like, oh, this is weird and a bit off. Whereas like they would promise, you know, a Time Lord, or not even that, Shooty Gatwa flies around in a blue box and he time travels, and like that's the show. Whereas really this season didn't really like emphasize like you can go anywhere and everywhere. It was more just like, oh, here are some really cool concepts that the show has never really tackled properly before. And yeah, and then it gets to the finale, and we'll probably like sum it up like when we get there. But suddenly it doesn't even go, oh, actually we're the 14th series. It goes, we're the
goes
fucking
from season
14th.
1 to series 14 really quickly.
It goes to like fucking season 40 of like the show entirely, because then it's suddenly showing, you know, fucking Pyramids of Mars is playing on a fucking iPad, and it's like, what? Who fucking, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's made a lot more strange as well for international audiences, because Tales of the TARDIS is only available in the UK, so they don't have access to any of that. So that rerun of Pyramids of Mars that they aired before.
But even with that, still hinging your finale on a Doctor Who story that is nearly 50 years old, and playing that on a screen. I mean, I sound like I'm more passionate about this than I actually am. When before we were recording, it was like, oh, I have nothing to say. This is more just like general common thoughts that I have, so I'm going to be a bit more laid back after this. But I'm just saying, it's like, even with Tales of the TARDIS, like, you cannot say to your audience, oh yeah, this is like what we've talked about with like Marvel and things in the past. It's like, you can't depend your audience to going like, oh, have you watched this 6-part Disney Plus series to understand what's going on? It's like, you're telling your audience, oh, you need to tune in on BBC 4 on the night before the finale goes out so you can understand what the fuck's about to happen in this TV show. It's like, that's what the fuck? Sorry. That's just what I think. Yeah. I think it's really weird that it suddenly took that turn into fan wank, really. And I'm not the biggest fan.
Yeah, we'll roll around to the start of the season in a sec. I just want to make the point of, I find it quite strange that back in 2008, Russell was sort of laying the foundation for these big connected universes, tying in all the spin-offs, and he built it up and done it really naturally. But now it seems to be that his new approach is just copying what the Star Wars shows or the Marvel shows are doing. And I find that quite strange, because that's sort of dying out now. I find it weird to do that 15 years ago and then to come back to it and sort of try to do it again.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like it's a weaker attempt to do it, and that's my general thought of this season, is that it feels like a weak imitation of something that Russell did so masterfully previously, and it's just sort of made me realise, it's like, well, this has come back around to what my original thought was when Russell, I think we talked about it, when Russell came in. I was like, oh god, this feels like we might just go back to how it was in 2008 and trying to recapture those glory days. And it really has felt like it's just trying to do what it did before, but to like but it's, you know, diminishing returns, and it kind of just makes me feel like, god, what would have happened if we had gotten like a brand new creative team on this show, like after the 60th, you know, like if with this rebrand you thought, oh, this is gonna head in a really bold new direction, and then all of a sudden it goes tits up, and it goes like, oh no, we're just trying to do what everything else is doing, you know, we're not the leaders, we're just the copycats. And it's like, well, maybe you should find someone with a stronger creative direction to steer this show, because I don't know.
I think a lot of people in the industry are just very... Russell as a brand has sort of already established himself, and it's like, he's proven that he can run Doctor Who. He can make it a success. You know, he's a masterful writer outside of that, since, you know, he's had many successful shows. I honestly feel like he just has a lot of yes men on his team, and that's why this is coming across a lot sloppier than his original run.
I agree with that. Yeah, it does.
But yeah,
it does
going
track
back to the beginning of this season, let's go into Space Babies, because I think Space Babies echoes a lot of similar beats from his first era, to the point of where it almost rips scenes from stuff like The End of the World and just sort of redoes them, but a little bit worse.
One of my criticisms that I have this season, any sort of sense that there could be a moment to pause or a moment to breathe, it felt like we lost that this year. And I do think that comes down to the pace and the frenetic editing, because with Space Babies, it doesn't stop. I don't ever think it stops in Space Babies, except for maybe the scenes where they're talking with the babies in the nursery. I don't think the entire thing really like stops moving. Like there's all the stuff where they land
it is very
and they run out, and then the boogeyman's there, and then they're in the lift, and they're running around, and they're going, "Oh, look outside, Ruby! Brand new alien planet. I'm the Doctor. TARDIS translation. Look at this."
Yeah, they throw exposition at you. Bang, 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 bang. Like, they go through everything. I didn't really like it. Usually, you know, the Doctor will drip feed little bits of themselves to the companion.
Yeah.
But here it just felt like they were running through a bingo card of like everything they had to tick off. Like, I'm the Doctor, I'm the last of Time Lords, I have 2 hearts, here's the phone thing. And then ending it with the TARDIS key. I'm like, you've known this woman for like 24 hours.
I talked about it with my partner, and she was like, oh, Ruby got through that first episode. She got initiated into the role of the companion very fucking quickly. Like, the Doctor was immediately like, I trust you. You're my new friend. Come with me. We're going to go on an adventure. It wasn't even like a thing of like, he's taken Ruby on an adventure because he sees maybe something in her. It was immediately like, oh, this Doctor has immediately gone, Ruby Sunday is my new best friend. And it's less of like a 13th Doctor thing where it's like the companions are the ones who are like, oh, we're a bit, you know, standoffish with her because we don't know her, but she's very welcoming and like she's immediately up for it. Whereas with Ruby and the 15th Doctor, it came across, it's like, oh, these two are immediately like, oh, we're besties. And we immediately know.
And there's no conflict there between them throughout the season, really. It's just they start off as besties and they end as besties.
I really did think it was going to go somewhere. After, another thing we didn't talk about was Church on Ruby Road, which, you know, was...
Yeah, I was sort of going to like reference back to that throughout this.
It's okay as a Christmas special. That's my big take on it. It's fine.
I quite liked it. I think it's one of the better shooty outings as showing off his Doctor, weirdly enough. Because I think a lot of his characterization in season 1, he comes across a lot less confident. There it's like he's almost, you know, he's running around, he's taking control. I don't know, and I didn't really get the same kind of thing from watching this season. I felt like they had almost weakened him a little bit.
Maybe.
I don't know if that translates.
I see where you're coming from.
I know, obviously, you'd film a couple of season 1 episodes first, so maybe he was just more comfortable in the role when they filmed Church. But to me, he felt more like, you know, the dashing hero type in there than he did, say, I don't know, the Devil's Card, where, you know, he's almost cowering away from Jinx.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're the Doctor.
I do think there was at certain points, definitely during the season, where it felt like the writing and the direction that had been given to Ncuti kind of diminished his presence as the Doctor. Yeah, like him running away from Maestro in Devil's Cord, immediately coming after an episode where he made a big point of I never run away from things with the boogeyman, which I remember in Space Babies when he says that, and I was like, no, you ran away because it was a big monster coming towards you. You know, you did. Yeah. It was common sense to run away from it. And he's like, no, I never run away from anything. And it's like, well, that's not true. And then the next episode literally proves that that's not true, because sometimes there's a big monster that the Doctor can't immediately fight. And it's just like, let's not draw attention to this part of the character, because that does diminish his presence. And then you've got an episode like Boom, which, that's no spoiler, is like, I quite liked Boom. But, you know, you've stranded him on this landmine to, like, strip away, you know, all the mystique around the Doctor and all his presence. And then it's like, you know, you've stripped it back to just the performance. But I felt like it's like, with an episode like Boom, that should come after 2 episodes where he is the swashbuckling, you know, dashing hero, taking command, saving the day. And it's like, that wasn't what was presented in Space Babies. I can't really remember how they fixed that. But in Devil's Cord, it's the Beatles who defeat the Maestro. Yeah. So it's like, the Doctor doesn't even do anything.
It's just a problem with the structuring of the series. It's the fact they've put too many experimental episodes in. I feel like a lot of these episodes feel like really good episode 8s.
Yeah, I see that.
Like, if they were in like a traditional season, right, they'd come quite later on in the season, maybe just before the finale. But the problem is, I feel like the season is just loaded full of like, yeah, like 73 Yards could definitely be that. Same with Dot and Bubble. Same with Devil's Card. I feel like having Devil's Card, having an enemy as strong as Jinx as your second episode, wasn't the right call. And I know there's been a lot of debate, if this was supposed to come later or whatever. I don't really want to dive into that because I don't care.
No, it's like, and it also gets like immediately disproven because it's like in Rogue when he gets that ring from Rogue and people saying like, oh, Devil's Cord should be coming this. Yeah. It's like, no. Look at the fucking costume. Yeah. It's like there was definitely continuity, and in all the behind the scenes, they're going like, we're filming episode 2 right now, and it's like, no, this order was locked in. So it's
where continuity begins to annoy me a little bit though. When we get to Devil's Card, they jump ahead 6 months. That annoys me.
Yeah, that is weird.
I wouldn't have minded a time jump, maybe even 3 episodes in. Sure, it would be a little bit early, but like, I could forgive it. But I don't know, having it as like episode 2, and you're like, oh yeah, they've been together 6 months. You lose a lot of that key development that I feel like's crucial for a companion. Do I want to travel with you? What are the dangers that come with this? And we sort of just gloss over that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's odd.
I think it's funny when you look at Flux and it goes like Dan Lewis has one adventure over 6 episodes and there is time jumps in that, but it's kind of like, oh, I feel like over the course of that I'm never going like, oh, Dan hasn't been there for that long. Like he kind of settled in quickly enough, whereas like Ruby, it kind of felt like, what the fuck, 6 months? Like we don't even know this fucking girl, and it's like it really didn't click until like 73 yards for me to be like, oh yeah, I like Ruby, and like I can confidently say that.
I really liked Ruby off the bat. Going back to Space Babies, I think their chemistry is the best thing about that episode. And just throughout the season, those two together, like you totally buy that they're best friends. I really like the vibe. I think she's a really good actress as well. I think she's very expressive, very emotive.
Millie Gibson.
I think those two are great. And definitely the highlight overall of the series. So I instantly took a liking to Ruby as a character, because I felt like she was fully formed. There just wasn't much development beyond that. I know we've been quite negative in this video, I just want to say it. I didn't hate Space Babies, I have a lot of problems with it, but I think it's fine. It's the most like just mid RTD opening.
With the 2 opener episodes, I preferred Space Babies over Devil's Card, personally.
I did as well, because I had more problems with Devil's Card.
Yeah.
And it's annoying because I really like the concept of Devil's Card. I kind of wish they had committed to it being a musical, though.
It feels like they were trying to do something like going like, oh, with Space Babies, you've got your traditional, quote-unquote, traditional Doctor Who story. Yeah. Baby's first Doctor Who, literally.
I want to say, very bad decision to make both Space Babies and The Devil's Card your introduction episodes to this new season. Like, they're not exactly safe entries, are they?
Well, it's the way that it goes, like, Shooty's first 3 solo Doctor Who adventures, like, where he is the lead. You've got goblins who are like literal mystical goblins with a flying ship. Yeah. Then you go to the boogeyman, who's like this artificial creature made of literal snot.
Yeah.
And his 3rd episode, he's fighting a god who controls music. Not even like you need the Daleks or the Cybermen to show up, because it was quite a nice breath of fresh air not to have those villains.
I quite like not having those.
Exactly. But there's not that traditional Doctor Who monster or villain for him to play off against. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I quite like Jinx as a villain.
Oh, she was brilliant.
I just don't think the plot was particularly great. I really liked her scenes. I liked how she played it. I thought the music battle was a bit cringe, but that's his own thing. Oh yeah, I really like the creative decision to remove music from the soundtrack when she takes music away. I thought that was a cool decision.
Oh yeah.
Something I want to get onto actually is they reference the Doctor telling Ruby about the Toymaker in Church of Ruby Road.
That's a deleted scene, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's a big problem with this series of cutting crucial scenes or pieces of dialogue that are referred back to later. So I've made a little list, right, and I'm going to run through them.
Please do.
In Space Babies, right, there's this whole push the button
Yeah,
motif that keeps reoccurring.
that's the jukebox scene that they talked about in the behind the
Yeah,
scenes, wasn't
yeah,
it? That there was going to be a big moment.
yeah. They play the Sugar Babes push the button
Nice.
before that, and then that ties into the whole push the button thing throughout. So that's odd. It's odd to like keep referring back to that. Um, One of the more important ones, the DNA scene from 73 Yards, which is integral to the reveal in the finale. Like they just cut that and they're like, okay, but you know they'll still go back to it.
Yeah.
They cut the scenes also explaining the magic whistle in the finale.
Isn't it a thing where it's like the Doctor finds the whistle in the memory TARDIS and then he throws that whistle into the TARDIS when he's like dragging Sutek through the time vortex. And and then it's meant to be like, oh, and Ruby's like, what the fuck, what the fuck? Ruby's like, what the fuck are you doing? And the Doctor's
Yeah.
like, oh, I've put the whistle into the TARDIS, so then it will be remembered, and then I can get the whistle. And it's like, with that one, it's kind of like, what the fuck do you mean you've not got a whistle in the TARDIS? Like, all these fucking
Yeah.
years. Whatever.
They should have just been K9's whistle. Should have just been in the Remember TARDIS. Just make it K9's whistle.
Yeah, but did you see in the behind the scenes that K9's head is mounted in
Yeah,
the memory
yeah.
TARDIS, and it's like, that's such a weird
That's funny.
detail, but I love it.
They cut the line also in Devil's Card about how music was returning back to the world.
Oh yeah, because then they have the big dance number, and like for me, I'm like going like, to make sense of this, I'm just assuming that it's like lingering effects of Maestro, which it is explained in the script, but then that's never addressed in the actual show.
I think my biggest problem with the scene is not the scene existing in itself. It feels a little bit up itself, with the Doctor winking to camera and then the literal lyrics of the thing being, "There is a twist, guys, whoa, you weren't expecting this." And I'm like, okay, like I wouldn't have cared if this was just a good song or like a musical number, but like it feels very on the nose to be like, haha, we got you. Look at this fun moment.
But it's an odd thing to do. And like referring back to your point of Russell is surrounded by yes men who are constantly telling him that his ideas are really, really good because they're so out there and Doctor Who can do anything. And it's definitely this vibe that I've got that Russell has literally stated this season. It's like, I don't need to explain myself because it's Doctor
Yeah.
Who and anything can happen. And it's like, I've given myself the justification because I poured some salt down once, and now I can literally say anything happens.
Everything Russell says in recent interviews I've absolutely hated. Like, he doesn't help himself.
No, he
He's
very,
like, yeah,
very
guys,
much
like the mystery didn't matter, you know? You know, it's just there for
Yeah.
fan engagement. Fuck off.
It's like it's this use of like content and generative engagement, and it's like, why are you as the storyteller? I get you're an executive producer at the same time, but it's like your job as the head showrunner, as the writer, should be to be telling a compelling narrative that, yes, would be engaging to an audience. Like that's what you deal with as a writer, is like that you want people to engage with what you are saying, but you also want it to be satisfying, and you want it to be something people can, you know, get their teeth into and talk about and enjoy, rather than it being like this corporate executive decision of like, oh, if we generate enough buzz, if we generate enough online discourse, that's a win. Like, that's what we're looking for. And it's like, no, that's such a soulless way of looking at producing content. And, content. Ugh.
Yeah. But Boom was okay. I like Boom.
Boom's quite good.
Boom was like a nice break after Space Babies and Devil's Card, because things just really slowed down.
Yeah, Boom and Rogue feel like the most traditional of this season in terms of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what I like, this is what I watch Doctor Who for, like stories that are fit in the mold of this show but also do new things with it, or even like, you know, like Rogue isn't breaking boundaries in the way of like it being a narrative. It is doing something new and different, and that's the same with Boom. It's like, oh, we've never told a story
Mhm.
where the Doctor is literally rooted to the spot before. And, like, that's a brilliant conceit, and that's a genius way of doing something new, you know?
It's one of the most Stephen Moffat scripts I've seen, but like
Mm.
it's done in a good way because he's doing all of his tropes, but he's doing them well.
It's the nostalgia, really, somehow, of, like, him only being gone, like, what is it? 6 years or 7 years, and it's like
Hmm.
calling back to Villain Guard and all the little
Yeah.
references like that. I mean, like, the story itself is very good, but all those little niche, like, little things like Doctor Who and, like, the President's wife.
He's always been good at them experimental character pieces, though. And, like, he does just understand the Doctor more than I think
Yes,
most writers.
that Stephen Moffat is seemingly the only showrunner to treat the Doctor less as this all good, all powerful. You know, Russell built up that whole idea of him being a lonely god and he can snap at any moment and do
Yeah.
whatever. But it's like that's not Russell's chosen personification of the Doctor, whereas like Moffat's is spelled out quite clearly in the Capaldi era, where it's like, on a good day, I'm not just a bloke travelling around in the TARDIS. I'm the
Yeah.
Doctor. Like, the Doctor is an idea to aspire towards. And he didn't understand it when he was doing it in the show. It felt a bit too introspective. But years on, and having grown up a bit, there's the sense of like, no, the Doctor cannot be all good. But it's the idea that the Doctor, as a character, has all the power in the world, and he could just snap and kill everyone, but he chooses not to. And like, Moffat's
Yeah.
the only one to really see, is like, that's the story of him. That's the interesting thing about the Doctor, is that he could very easily kill anyone who ever hurt him, or destroy everything,
Yeah.
but he chooses not to. And like, that's fascinating, and Moffat understands that.
Yeah.
Shoot, very good. I don't know if we've said that yet, but he is very
Yes.
good,
Yeah.
and a very good choice for the Doctor. Certain episodes played more to his strengths, like Church on Ruby Road played to his more dashing strength, whereas like an episode like Boom played more to his emotional, vulnerabilities, and just that sense of like, oh, this is a Doctor who is not afraid to show that he's scared, and not afraid to show that he is in any sense like, he's got confidence enough to show that he is in control. Like, even when he's losing control, he's like,
Yes.
no, I will pull this situation back. Ruby's dying, and he immediately goes like, right, I'm gonna fucking end this war. AI, go in my body, AI, and then go into this robot. And then he's dancing around, and I like that he's quite a multifaceted incarnation so far. Like, there's nothing really you can pin down with like, and that's his defining trait beyond like, he's a bit flirty, he's a bit saucy. But shoot, he even said that was going to be
He's a bit,
sort of
yeah.
a big part of his character. So I
Likes his fashion.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. What did you think of him not having a sort of specific like look this season? Like, he alternated.
I liked it. I was on board because I think the Doctor having one sole look can start to feel a bit costumey. It's why I quite like how Capaldi had numerous looks, how he would often change between trousers, his hoodies, different shirts, whatever. But it would still have the same base style. It wasn't anything crazy, like he didn't go from wearing like a leather coat one day to shorts and a bucket hat. It was all quite uniform, but it didn't feel like one set costume. And this felt to me like an extension of that.
Yeah.
It feels like the Doctor is just a person. They change clothes. I'm fine with that.
I think the problem I have with it is not the fact that he changes his outfit. I think it's more that some of the outfits don't go as far with what you could do with the Doctor's costume changing. I think some of them can be like, particularly him in his combat gear right at the end of the finale, in just a white t-shirt and combat trousers. It kind of just, for me, it just seems of like, like, I obviously, like, I'm not going like, the costume is what makes the character, but it's more just like, you could do a lot more with that. You could do a lot more
I get that,
interesting stuff.
The thing I quite like is, although he is having so many costume changes, a lot of them are making sense. There's a lot of browns, oranges. Obviously, he has like different suits for whatever when he goes back in time. I do think this finale outfit, it isn't all that doctory. I mean, it's a leather jacket and jeans at the end of the day.
I quite liked the leather jacket and jeans look at the end of the series. It's more that when it was like in Empire of Death, when suddenly he's just going into a greasy t-shirt and combat trousers, it's kind of like, oh, this is your big showstopper outfit. And even like in Dot and Bubble, when he takes off that checkered coat that was like his reveal costume, and then you only see like the full look right at the end of the story, I'm just like going like, he's just wearing a crop top jumper. It's like,
I don't hate it that much.
oh yeah, I have no personal grudge against any of these. It's more just like, I just think they could do more.
This series seriously suffered from runtime. When you look at other streaming shows that are 8 episodes long, it's kind of just universally accepted they are all like an hour.
Yeah. You've got it on streaming and you've got the increased budget. I don't see there a reason why you can't make these an hour long.
Yeah.
Doctor Who is a flagship show of the BBC. They will put it on in a prime time slot. They won't force it to change. And especially with this whole creative team that's meant to give it so much more power and leeway in like television, it's meant to be like, no, Doctor Who says how long it's going to be and how much it's going to do, and everything else will accommodate around that. Whereas it felt like just like, and you're just choosing to do 43-minute episodes because that's what happened before.
Let's go on to 73 Yards now. This is an episode that I really like.
I agree. I like 73 Yards. It's probably my second favourite of the season, but I haven't rewatched it since it went out. I just remember thinking that was very good.
Okay. I've rewatched it a couple times. This is probably my favourite of the season.
Fair dues.
I really love this type of more... I don't really know how I describe 73 Yards. Like, I really like the episode conceptually. I love, like, you know,
it's just the vibe.
The draws from, like, Welsh folklore.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it was the episode that we needed for Ruby at this point.
It's crazy to me that 73 Yards was Melly Gibson's first Doctor Who story.
Oh yeah,
because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's been building to this, when really it's like, oh, she delivered this performance straight out the fucking gate. She carried the fucking show while Shooty Gatwood was trapped making a shit season of Sex Education. You know, it's like. Wow, I was blown away when I learned it's like this was the first script she got, and this was the first day as like a 40-year-old Ruby. You know, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. The direction I thought was really good in this episode as well.
Oh, this block of 73 Yards and Dot and Bubble are two of the best directed episodes of Doctor Who. Isn't it Dylan Holm Williams? I'm so sorry that I don't remember your name. He's on Twitter and he showed like all his like plans and storyboards for how he wanted to shoot 73 Yards and Dot and Bubble and things like that. And just watching that, I was like, God damn, that's a guy that you want to keep around. I hope he's back for season 2. This is like, this is your Rachel Talalay. Get them back.
Apparently he's supposed to be directing that spin-off that's happening.
The war between the land and the sea.
Yeah, whatever the hell that's going to be.
Sea Devils and Martha Jones.
Yeah, and Gwen. And I don't know what it could be, but I can't get excited for any of these ideas.
Well, isn't it supposed to be rumoured that maybe we might learn a bit about this at there's Comic-Con coming up in a couple of days, isn't it? So it's like maybe they'll drop some like details of what this is going to be. Like I think if they are doing this spin-off, which it seems there's so much rumbling about it that you'd assume that there is something happening, but it's like what it actually is, because like the war between the land and the sea is a shit title. Like, sorry, like it's a great line for Shooty to say in 73 Yards, but as a title of a show that's gonna, I presume, go out on the BBC, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? So it's like... Yeah.
I also don't know why Shooty would say that to then make a spin-off about that.
I
don't see the two being connected.
I assumed it was just like this is just a fun, like, hint to what, you know, like
Maybe.
how it's like, I think, you know, Torchwood wasn't originally, like, there wasn't a set idea of what that would be, and they just sort of threw it in, and it's just like, that's a thing, and then we can expand on it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
But going back to 73 Yards, This
seems to be a bit of a Marmite episode. I know people that really like it and really seem to hate it, because obviously the ending, it doesn't really happen. So it's like, does that development really matter?
It's funny because it's like I was at drinks at a party, and me and my partner were there, and we were talking with our friend's boyfriend, and we found out that he had watched 73 Yards, and he was absolutely like, what the fuck was that? None of it happened. It was all like, what was the point of it? There was no explanation. And then my girlfriend, who that was 73 Yards was her favorite of the season. She loved the vibe of it, and she was like defending it outright, being like, "No, that's the point. They didn't explain it. They didn't like bog it down with saying, and it's this alien fairy monster that has turned Ruby's life into a hell." You know, it's like, no, it doesn't need to be that. I fully agreed. Where it's like, and like, if you had questions, look them up. You know.
Yeah, that's what I did, because I was at MCM weekend when this would have aired. And I was staying with Matt, and he really didn't seem to like it on first viewing until he looked it up and started connecting all the dots and it making sense. And when we went out, obviously being at a convention, being around a load of nerds, there were so many people that just, really hated it. Matt was going on the defensive because he'd looked up the stuff. He's like, no, actually, look, this is really good because, that connects to that and whatever. I think, doing that little bit of research for what the fairy circle actually is, and, knowing about that folklore, I'd say definitely helps a lot.
The best thing about the episode is that it got the audience to actually engage with it in an interesting way, and that's literally what it's meant to be.
It was one of them episodes where I enjoyed it before doing the research. It's a really good gripping mystery, because you're like, okay, well, where is the Doctor? Why is she here? Who is this woman?
Yeah, but then the whole thing is like, it's specifically 73 Yards, which is actually something I quite liked. Sort of getting addressed in the finale, that the TARDIS perception filter is exactly 73 yards as well.
That's cool.
And that Kate Stewart, or Kate Lethbridge Stewart as she now goes by, which just seems like Russell going like, I've sort of paid attention to what this character's like, so I'm just sort of gonna write what I think she's like.
I saw people really defending that on Twitter. I saw like Ben Cook being like, oh, well, people, as they get older, want to reconnect with their families a bit more and want to go back to using those old names. And I'm like, just say that he wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
It's such a non-issue that people are making an issue.
It's kind of like how we said in our speculation of the 60th and of what we didn't know it was going to be called Season 1, it kind of said hopefully Russell will give Gemma Redgrave some more to do and some more stuff to sink her teeth into. But in reality, like what he did with the Toy Maker and definitely what he did with Sutek, Russell just sort of wrote what he thought Kate Stewart was like, and he just like, well, this is my idea of what she acts like. And to be fair, that's fine, because you are the writer, you are in control. But it's more just like, there wasn't any hint that Kate has been like this in the past, or that she was going to sort of act the way she did. And I'm not sure how to like define it, but it's more just like, oh, Kate was not more developed this season, but more that she was in a different sort of state than what she'd previously been presented as.
I get that, yeah.
With Unit's presentation or representation in this era, I've gone really fucking sour on it. Like, I do not like this shield unit.
It's weird, because the more they try and make me care about it, the less I do. They're like, whoa, look, we have this big tower and this little robot guy, and look, Kate Stewart. And if they brought back Martha or whatever, I would just sort of be like, okay, but why?
Yeah, and it's like, if Gwen's there, okay, right, alright, I won't get into everything, because then it just becomes talking about the finale, and we'll get to
I want to say
finale.
one thing, right, that bugged me a little bit, is that when you're trying to reinvent Kate Stewart, it did baffle me a little bit that the Doctor has known Kate for the last 10 plus years, and he still introduces Kate to Ruby as, I used to work with her dad. I'm like, come on. I'm like, I would have gotten that, like,
guys.
yeah. I'm like, you could have been like, yeah, I've worked with her a couple times. Like, you didn't have to introduce her to, like, yeah, I used to work with her dad once. No, she's been around for the last 11 years.
In The Power of Three, she was established as like, oh, this competent scientific. That's a very strong point that we should make. So like, she was a science officer of UNIT, but like that was where UNIT was heading, into a more scientific, less from this weird shield, marvelly like military organization. Whereas obviously, like in the Pertwee era, it's fucking Dad's army. You know, it's like it's literally just the British army. But then they bring that link up of like, oh, she's the Brigadier's daughter, and Doctor's like, oh, you know, I knew that, but it's like, obviously I wasn't going to say anything being like, oh, you're the Brigadier's daughter, I like you because you're the Brigadier's daughter. No, the Doctor in the first episode when he met her, he's like, he just liked her because she was a competent UNIT scientist, and it was like, oh no, they get on. And then sort of it became a bit of diminishing returns every time she came back. I've said that already with diminishing returns, but it's like, but it's in the way that it's like every time she came back, she strayed further and further away from where she had originally begun as a character, being the scientific officer in charge of UNIT. And then you get Osgood introduced, and I don't know if I'm happy that Osgood's not around anymore. It's more just weird that she just disappeared off the face of the earth. But UNIT now is just, it's nothing to me. I don't care. I don't care about a spin-off about UNIT. I don't really care if there are Sea Devils in it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like Mel being part of it, don't care. Why is Rose back? You brought back Rose just to stand around in the background?
She was playing on her iPad.
yeah, iPad child. But yeah, going back to the episodes, going through, 73 Yards, we both really liked.
I really liked that it stemmed from this idea of there being this Welsh folklore, this mystery of Mad Jack, and then it pulls the rug out of you like after the first 15 minutes. It goes, no, it's not about that, and it's actually even stranger than that. It's like, it's this unexplainable thing.
Yeah.
And at first I didn't know how I felt about that, but now, like, on reflection, that's such an interesting thing to do, because obviously it's like how they talk about it in the episode. It's like, we make up the rules for these unexplainable things, and that feeds into it. It's like, we're making up the rules that it's this ancient curse on the Welsh land, and it's like, no, it's something even weirder than that, and like that's a really good idea, and I really enjoyed it, even if it was really taking the skeleton of the Curse of Clyde Langer and doing it in Doctor Who. But
I did think that. Let's move on to Dot and Bubble. I'll be curious to hear what you think of this one.
Dot and Bubble is a strange Doctor-like one, where it's like, it is, but it isn't.
He's threaded throughout the episode. I guess he's not the focus of the episode.
No, he is not the main character.
He's not leading the episode.
I'm trying to think of anything similar, but there's not really an episode like Dot and Bubble where the Doctor is in it, but he's not the driving main force of the character. I assumed it was going to be something like this, because sticking the Doctor on a screen is a brilliant way of getting around that Shooty wasn't around for actually going on location, and then you can shoot these scenes with Millie and Shooty, like, I don't know, during the season 2 block for whatever reason, you know what I mean? It's like, it never really mattered when they were actually needed on set, because their characters are appearing as digital screens. So I thought that was a great workaround. But my take on Dot and Bubble is that I need to watch it again, basically, is my take.
Okay, fair. Because I had to watch it again, because I don't think I enjoyed it much at all. Or maybe I was more shocked by it when I first watched it, because that ending was so powerful, and I was like, I don't really get where this has come from.
It's insane that we've had the exact same reaction there. That's actually exactly how I felt, where it's like, I went in thinking it was going to be something completely different, and when it didn't meet what I wanted it to, I didn't know if I liked it, and then that ending comes out of nowhere. Well, for me, like at the time, comes out of nowhere, is really powerful, but I don't feel the weight of it because I've not engaged with the story.
Having rewatched it a couple times, I would say this is one of the stronger episodes of this season. I think it has some of the strongest world building, and also it does become a lot more apparent when you're watching it, with the constant microaggressions throughout, Lindy speaking to the Doctor.
The funniest thing about that is finding a YouTube video that is like all the racism in Dot and Bubble compilation, and it's like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
I feel like it's kind of designed to be shocking, because I think a lot of people had a similar reaction when they first watched it, in that they didn't pick up on a lot of the microaggressions, the just outward racism throughout. So that ending does come as a shock, because you're like, oh wow, what? Going in, this is one you probably do have to watch it, or at least know what you're going into beforehand to really get everything out of it. And yeah, I think going in with that knowledge, I really enjoyed it.
No, that's fair. In retrospect and seeing everything that came out and all the things about it, I was like, oh, this does sound like an episode that I should have really engaged with a bit more. Maybe it was just how I watched it and my expectations going in for it. And it's like, I watched it with my girlfriend and my best friend, and my girlfriend said it was one of the worst Doctor Who she'd ever seen. And my friend who doesn't watch Doctor Who didn't get it at all. So I
get it, because I think when I first watched it, I couldn't quite understand what angle it was really coming at. I thought the commentary was going to be more around social media. Okay, thank you, Doc, for barking. I thought it was going to be more around social media, and just it was going to be a kind of boomerish take of like, oh, we need these arrows to move around because we're always looking at our phones. And I thought it was going to be, that was more of the commentary. That it was going to be. They made this unlikable character who's like, oh look, she's just like one of you, Gen Z Zoomers. I think actually when you know what it's trying to say, and you're like, oh right, okay. I took a lot out of it. I've seen a few people of colour, not say that it's bad, but maybe it's a little bit tone deaf in how it goes about its commentary. And that's because of, when you look at season 1 as a whole, there are no people of colour.
This is exactly
writing.
what I was about to
say.
say.
There are no people of colour
exactly.
directing.
Like...
Yeah. Everyone on that team is white.
And admittedly, it's not like, oh, no, you shouldn't be allowed to talk about this. But it's the fact that you're looking around at the room and looking at everyone who's writing scripts and who's on your team, and you don't see the irony in the fact that you are telling that story.
Being Shruti's first day, he is great. He puts all of his fucking heart and soul into it. I think that is one of his better performances.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that would be shocking. This is the first time he's ever had to deal with this. Like, he's so desperate to help these people, no matter what they think.
The Doctor realises he's not offended, per se. I don't know, this is just my reading of it. It's more like the Doctor's more just like flabbergasted and enraged.
Yeah, he's baffled.
That something like this would stop them. It's not the fact that he is like, oh my god, like they've been racist to me. It's more like their prejudice. They're so narrow-minded and stupid that they are just going to walk into certain death, then let me save them. And it's because in this body I look like this. And it's like, wow. It's just that look he gives back before he gets into the TARDIS, where he's just like, if I was the 14th Doctor still, what if I had saved those people though? Like, as a white man, I would never have realised. Like, the Doctor hadn't experienced that. And I love that reading of it as well. Like, the Doctor being like, holy shit, like, these people didn't actually deserve to be saved. I see that now, but at the same time, it took me being different than I ever have been, or ever know I have been. There's a lot of emotion going on there, and I think Ncuti played that perfectly. I think that is a perfect moment for him.
I also quite like that they did this in a futuristic story, as opposed to doing it, say in the Beatles episode. I think it really hits harder when you realise that this isn't a problem that's just going to go away overnight.
Yeah.
It would be very easy to go back in the past and, have someone say something to him or whatever. I guess kind of like what they do in Rosa, where you're like, it's a little bit more surface level.
And I do like the build-up to it being this, not reveal their true colours, because they are on display throughout the entire episode. But the problem I have with it is, again, like what we said with like Russell patting himself on the back, being like, oh, I wonder if anyone will actually realise what we're doing here. And it's like, all of them are white, and it's like, have you realised it? It's like, oh, that says something about you if you don't realise it. Maybe it'll make people realise.
But the thing is, I don't know if it's supposed to be treated like a twist as much as like, haha, we got you. Because she is like, she still is presented as a very unlikable character. throughout.
Even if she wasn't, and this is a funny thing to say, even if she wasn't racist, with her letting Ricky September die, which, first of all, with Russell's names, Ruby Sunday, Ricky September, and there wasn't like any relation or like, you know, connection. And it's just like,
Yeah.
these people are meant to, whatever. It was
They
more
all
just
had
like
weird
a thing
names
of
on
like,
that planet, though, like Hookie Pie. And...
whatever. But still, even with her letting him die, it's like, yeah, she is an irredeemable character. And that scene is clearly meant to show it's like, I quite liked her leaving him to die, like before I'd even clocked the whole white supremacist, like, you know, sort of
I mean, it's
angle.
coming at it from a few angles. I think it's, you know, it's a commentary on classism. It's a commentary
I thought that's
on
where it was
racism.
coming from at the first, was the classism angle.
Yeah, I've seen a few people have different readings of it, and I think that's a good thing. I don't really watch a lot of reaction videos to Doctor Who, but I specifically went on my way to watch some like black creators react to that, just to see what their reading of the episode would be. And they didn't necessarily pick up on the racism the first time around, but they saw it as more of like a classism thing, which I found interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, my friend who was watching but doesn't really get Doctor Who, she said, oh, are they racist? And I said, I'm not sure. I think it's more classism, like, as the episode was ending. And then it wasn't until after I went on Twitter and read more about people's takes of it, was me realizing, it was racist.
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely about both, I'd say. Because, I mean, there are lines of just, you know, Wendy literally saying, I thought you all looked the same.
Yeah.
Like, that's not exactly subtle, but the fact that we didn't pick it up sort of, you know, shows that it's like, oh.
Because it's not exactly like I can say I suspected from the start, because obviously, like, I didn't. But I can definitely for safe sure, like, when she was saying things like, oh, he'll be so much more behaved, like, it was firing something at the back of my head, but I was too engaged in the episode to properly dwell on it, I guess is my only thing I can say. Was that it was more just like, I couldn't think about that. Like, if someone had paused it and gone, what do you think she meant by that? And it's like, I maybe would have, like, in the moment gone, oh, she's being racist. I don't know. It's tough for two white boys, definitely, I feel, to talk about this episode in any sort of meaningful way.
Big up the slugs.
Big up the slugs. The what they called the man
They
traps.
looked gorgeous as well. Like, the effects on them were amazing.
Our theory was wrong. They were just eating people. We thought they were brainwashing them from the set pictures, but no, they were eating them.
I think originally, though, we thought that the Roger Rapp William episode was going to be part of this, because they were filming them both at the same time, and we thought it was going to be like some
it's the
weird...
one block, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the man traps, on the big slug boys that we love so much, eat the rich. With the reveal, they've been artificially generated by the AI. This is actually a thing I can confidently say about, like, a negative about the episode, is that it's like, oh, we're doing another episode where AI is the villain. Okay, that's a bit repetitive, especially, like, it's not even
Well,
like...
I don't think AI is the villain.
But
I think the racists are the villain.
They are for sure the villain, but it's in terms of, like, the antagonistic force that is causing the drive of the episode, of the plot. These dots have decided that the people of Fine Time and the home world are awful and they need to be killed. And so instead of doing what very easily worked with Ricky September, where the fucking dot shoots through his head like a bullet, which was a great moment, instead these dots decide, we're going to grow some elaborate slug monsters, and then we're going to release them, and then they're going to kill everyone alphabetically. And it's more just like, that's not exactly the most compelling mystery.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, because the dot could very easily just kill them all as soon as they activate it, and just go straight for their heads. I think there's a line about how the dots originally didn't want to be detected or something, so generated these slug things. I don't know, it doesn't really work when you actually think about it, though, because you're like,
flimsy.
Well, why would they even bother trying to hide that?
It's a flimsy reveal and a flimsy plot just to be like... And it does feel like repetition, because it's like, you know, AI gone bad. Whatever you think of the actual characters it's turned against, the AI is the antagonist. And then it's like artificially growing these slugs. It's like, well, that's the boogeyman again.
I think it would have been a lot better if you just had it be, the slugs have come from the weird forests outside of the dome.
Yeah.
They've gotten in, and then just have it be that the AI in charge or whatever that, detects problems so that stuff can't happen. Just have it be that that ignores the fact that the slugs are there, and then you don't have an issue. You just have these slug entities be their separate thing. I feel like that removes the problem. Because then you can still have the Dot, acting out at the end and kill Ricky September. And, that still be a shock reveal. That's like, oh no, that was behind it all. But having the Dots, artificially create the slugs, I think is a bit weird.
Or even have a thing of like, the slugs have been let in, and the AI, and this is what I thought this episode was going towards with the commentary and like social media and everything, was that it was killing them off by their number of followers. And like, it's like,
Yeah.
the more you sell your soul out to become like a content creator, the closer you are to just, becoming a rich scumbag, and you deserve death. Mm-hmm. And it's like...
Yeah, I think that would have worked better.
I think it's like maybe, the slugs were let in, and then the Dots were sending their people into the slugs by going through their follower count, like going through like who's the top and working their way down.
Yeah.
And it's like, I
think that would have worked a lot better.
Even though that doesn't explain everything, I think that's more interesting a way of doing it than just going, oh, they're killing you in alphabetical order. And then...
Yeah.
And then he's like, his name's Ricky
It did
Coombs.
feel like a little bit of a forced reveal.
It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
But... No, I think Dot and Bubble...
I still would say I overall like this episode, but it does have its faults, for sure.
I definitely need to rewatch Dot and Bubble. And I think that goes for a lot of this season. It's like, I should rewatch 73 Yards, and I should rewatch Dot and Bubble, definitely, because...
Yeah.
Because I know everyone has raved about the sort of the Boom to Dot and Bubble run is quite a solid run, but I would say the Boom to Rogue run, this is a clever segue, is equally great. I saying Rogue is my favourite episode of this season.
That is fair.
I felt that this episode was such a breath of fresh air of new talent.
Definitely.
And then the dialogue. My favourite thing about Rogue is definitely the dialogue. There are so many great lines in this episode, like Stilton, it's a very stiff cheese. It's a shed, it's not cloaked, it's behind a tree, love the sheds,
really
things
good
like that. Loads of really, really good lines. Oh, my name is Bond, Molecular Bond.
This weirdly felt the most shooty Doctor episode, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like, it felt like they'd finally figured out his identity for what they wanted his Doctor to be.
He felt the most doctory and confident in Rogue, and that's why I loved it so much. It felt like he was in total control of what he was doing, how he was playing it. Like, him and Jonathan Groff, like, we'll get into Rogue himself, but he's like, that was such a great pairing. And it was like, did the classic Doctor Who thing of the Doctor and the companions split off and go have their separate adventures and then come back together at the end. And it's like, whilst obviously the Doctor and Rogue's storyline was far more interesting than what Ruby was up to, I think it both worked perfectly. I think it was a really good episode, and it was what I needed to be like, this is the Doctor Who I like. There's aliens, big tick. There's evil aliens, and they're doing a dastardly plot in the past, and the Doctor's gone dress up. Perfect. Fantastic. Give me 15 of them right now.
When I got to Rogue, when I was watching it, I was like, this is the episode I've been wanting for so long. Where it is just your traditional Doctor arrives somewhere, aliens have taken over, and he just sorts it out.
Weirdly, it put me back in the mind of, do you remember in Series 11 where we were like, Kablam and the Witchfinders are going to be like the two classic, like traditional Doctor Who episodes that we're really going to enjoy? And then they kind of, like, Kablam definitely wasn't, and we were both quite deflated by that. I felt like Rogue, I was, like, feeling the same thing, but it actually delivered on what I wanted, of being, like, the actual, like, this is the Doctor Who I like, this is what I've been waiting for. It was just a fun romp in the Regency, and I loved the reveal, like, it being that all the Bridgerton influences of it were deliberate. It wasn't just Doctor Who was trend chasing, it was literally relevant to the plot that it was all... this is so Bridgerton.
They were fans of Bridgerton and wanted to cosplay Bridgerton.
It ties him really well with the actual villains, the Chulda. It's that classic RTD thing of he literally went, I want them to be birds because I like animal aliens in Doctor Who. And I was like, right.
Yeah.
But I thought they were a great monster. Like, the way that they were shapeshifters, they were body hoppers, but the way they hopped bodies was really interesting. I liked that they left, like, the corpses of the people that they were
Yeah.
taking over behind.
That's the thing. They're quite a sinister villain for an episode that I sort of look upon as being quite fun and silly overall.
Definitely. What we always love about Doctor Who is there's permanent death, and it's not just like unnamed character number 4. You know, we were actually like the Duchess, and like at one point you think Ruby's gone, and then that twist with the Emily character that Ruby had been with being a Chulda the entire time was a great. I thought that was a great little twist. Like it all worked. It all worked really well, I thought.
So, Rogue himself, Mr. Jonathan Groff.
Sexy man.
Yeah, I loved him. As soon as the Doctor started talking, I was like, hell yeah.
I just wanted them to kiss.
You can't not draw parallels, I think, to Jack. Like, I think there are similarities there. Just sort of go without saying.
It's hard, though, because it's like, I feel that the only real connections to Jack was he's flirty and he's American, and it's more just like, and he has like a sort of grungy spaceship, and it's like, yes, there's that comparison, but at the same time, it's like, what? So we can never do any sort of
no, I agree.
A roguish character.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
I'm
just saying there's
definitely definitely
parallels.
It's very strongly hinted that Rogue will come back at some point.
Yeah.
With the
I'm
whole
sure.
mystery.
Yeah, he has to come back.
And I really want that. You know, there's nothing more than I want for this character to continue, because I felt that him and Shooty, they'd hinted about it enough, but god damn, did them two have some sexual chemistry and romantic chemistry. It was like, god damn, these two are electric together. And it was just nice seeing Shooty. You know, it's always nice when the Doctor gets to split off from the companion and meets like an interesting side character that they have a lot of chemistry with. And like Shooty's a chemistry machine, so it works with a lot of people. But it was just like, oh, like you didn't want it to cut away from the two of them together, because every scene with a pair of them was so much fun.
I don't even usually like romantic subplots with the Doctor, but it's fleshed out really well, I think.
The funniest thing about it is that people turning around going, oh, they fell in love, which I don't necessarily think they fell in love. Let's be serious here, guys.
Yeah, no, they definitely just had like an infatuation for each other.
They fancied each other, yeah, definitely. And it's like people complained about the speed of them two, like, you know, kissing and having their like moment together, when it's like, the Doctor met Madame de Pompadour one episode, and people still talk about that as how great that was. And it's just like, these are not different things. These are the same thing, you know? Just watch yourself, because you just sounded like you hate gay people, really.
I think that is a lot of it, because this episode has been rated really lowly in all the polls. Like, I keep seeing it in like top 10 lists. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. No, I think it is just people showing it's a black queer romance.
One of my parents didn't think it was necessary. Like, not that he was against it. He was more just like, oh, I felt that was too quick. And I was like, I can understand that criticism, but at the same time, it's like, I think it sometimes just comes down to your personal preference of like, do you want the Doctor to be aromantic, asexual, or do you like there to be romance? And I feel like if you can tolerate or you enjoy the Doctor and Rose being an item, or the Doctor and River, then there's no way you can say that the Doctor and Rogue can't be a thing. You know, it's plausible.
No.
And, you know, Shooty's a brand new Doctor. You don't know what his leanings will be. So it's more just a thing of, let's learn what the two of them are like.
Rogue's an episode that I don't have a lot to say about, to be honest.
I can't say any, like, real criticism, because it's like, yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
The only criticism I have at the episode, it's not really a big thing, but I think it's when they do the fake out Ruby dying. And it's just because they do that, like, weird lightning effect or something.
Yeah.
But, like, when you do the flashback, they never actually do that. It's not a big thing. It doesn't take away from the episode really at all. But I'd say that was probably one of, you know, if I had to say something negative against it.
That just needed cutting, like that lightning effect. You just needed to leave it more on, Ruby's getting attacked, oh no! And then next time you see her, because like I didn't think that she was gone. I mean, I wondered with the lightning, but it was more just like when she walked back in and she wasn't a bird woman, I was like, okay, so that's probably just Ruby. But yeah, I think that's all that needed changing there. Apart from that, yeah, exactly. I think it was a great episode. The Schalke Doctor turned up at one point. That was quite cool.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, that was cool. That's a cool little nod that people, thought far too much into.
It's like in Timeless Children when the fucking Morbius doctors appear. It's no different from
Yeah.
that. It's more just going like, yeah, this thing happened.
Do you want to go into The Legend of Ruby Sunday?
Not really, but here we are.
A lot of people seem to like this setup episode. I've always hated it.
Yeah, it's shit. It does nothing. It is just characters going, oh, what could this mean? But I don't know, Doctor. What could this thing mean? Could these things be connected? Oh, I don't know, Mel. Let's get on your fucking moped and go see Susan Twist. And then, oh no, look, it's a big dog. And that's
It's the biggest waste of time of an episode I think this season's had. And it's a real shame. I don't think it would have made the finale good, but I think the finale desperately needed a lot of the time that this episode dedicates things to. Let's see if it's Susan, my granddaughter. I know you name dropped her in like episode 2, but like, what?
I know. It's that thing of like when Ruby turned around and my girlfriend watched Legend of Ruby Sunday before I did, and she messaged me being like, "Oh, you're gonna really like. It's already really good. Like this first pre-titles." And then I watched it, and it was literally that moment of like, Susan is the name of my granddaughter. Cut to the titles, and it's like meant to be this great big, oh my god, it's Susan like moment, and I was just sat there like, all right. And I looked round at my mum.
Yeah.
I looked round at my mum, and my mum literally just shrugged her shoulders, like going like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, I don't know what this means."
Yeah. I don't like this episode for a lot of reasons. I don't like that it wastes our time. I don't like that, we spend so much time focusing on and almost sort of telling the audience that this is going to be Susan. Because, they do the whole thing of like, haha, look, it's an anagram of TARDIS that you all picked up on Twitter, didn't you?
See, that was actually a part that I quite liked, of them immediately being like, obviously we've worked out that that's an anagram of TARDIS and things like that. But the Susan thing got more in my case because it's more just like Ruby turns around and goes, "Doctor, isn't that important? Because your granddaughter is also called Susan."
It's just,
and it's more
it's
just like,
such a forced connection. Like, I get it, TARDIS, also Susan, but also... I don't know, my head wouldn't jump to that. Also, why would Susan be splintered across all of time and space be this woman?
I don't meet every other person who's also called Ollie and go, "Oh, there's a connection."
Yeah. That's what I mean. I feel like they don't, and I'm not saying it would have been good, because it would have been kind of Chibnall to be like, well, my granddaughter came up with the anagram TARDIS, and that could be linked to this. You needed something there to sort of connect the two more for the audience who doesn't know who Susan is, to really buy why the Doctor would be so invested.
Yeah, and they don't even say like what happened to her either. They don't even go into like, oh, last time I saw Susan, I left her on Earth in the future, and I never went back. No one ever goes, where is she, Doctor?
I'm trying to think about Legend of Ruby Sunday because it's such a nothing episode. I mean, I'm just thinking of like little lines that I didn't like. It's weird that the Doctor mentions in that episode that he's never been a dad because it's out of order. But throughout the show, the Doctor is referenced, including Russell scripts, that he has been a father.
I don't mind the idea of them talking about the Doctor as a non-linear being, which he is.
Yeah.
They literally say he's a complicated space-time event, da-da-da-da-da. It hand waves everything away. But yeah, it's more the idea that he's categorically saying that he doesn't know if he has children. You've said you do.
Yeah.
You know that. It's more a thing, it's like, they might be alive, they might not be alive, time works in that sort of way. And like maybe before you had them, they already existed because of time travel. Like, I understand all that, but yeah, it's more a thing of he's like, well, I'm not sure if I had children. No, I'm pretty sure you've said you did, so shut your face.
Yeah, he said it multiple times just in the revival. What else about Legend of Ruby Sunday? I mean, obviously, the whole focus is just on who is Susan Twist. Not really spoken that much on the mystery. The weird snow motif that happens throughout, the music that plays. I'm sure that'll get paid off in the finale.
Talking to Jacob the other day, and he said his sort of fan brain like explanation for the snow is that the TARDIS was reaching back to the memory, because the doctor just casually drops that he can't go back to Ruby Road because it's so full of time or whatever, and it's like, oh, it's so raw and I've never seen anything like it before. It's more just like hand wave. It's like, oh, okay, because I really did think, oh, we're going to go back to Ruby Road. When the Doctor went back in the episode Church on Ruby Road, and Russell said, oh, there are things there that you don't know about yet, I assumed, oh, is that Ruby under the cloak and the Doctor's waiting round the corner to pick her up and things like that. And, you know, maybe the final confrontation with whatever villain is the finale villain is also there and we just don't know it yet. That could have been a reason why time gets all fucky on that night, because like maybe accidentally the Doctor runs into his past self and the two TARDISes are there, and, you know, loads of things.
And annoyingly, right, this was an arc that I was invested in. I really like the scene in Space Babies, particularly when you first get that flashback.
Oh, definitely.
And the memory changes. I was genuinely shocked by that. I was like, okay, we're doing something with this. This is interesting. I'm on board with this.
That final shot of the snowing in the TARDIS and the Doctor scanning Ruby and being like, what's going on? Like, it set up so much promise of like, oh, this is a bit interesting. Like, well, I'm
the same
like,
with Devil's Card.
There's something up
like
with
the way how
Ruby.
Jinx reacts, being like, what is this force within you? This song is more powerful than anything I've ever seen.
What I didn't like since the 60th has been this whole the one who waits thing.
Yes, that's my biggest problem with Russell as a whole, is that he always tries to one-up himself, and it does just lead to really unsatisfying payoffs. You can't set up and rate yourself. He is the god of all gods, the god of death, and then have him defeated the way he is, because of course people are going to be disappointed. Never mind the fact of the legacy of the character you're bringing back. Just based off, you know, that sole setup of being like, yeah, he's the god of all gods, right? And then doing it like that, people are going to be let down regardless. And I'm like, how is he going to top that? Why am I going to care about who Mrs. Flood is if I've already seen Sutek kill her? Because, you know, he did that. He did that in the episode with his magical dust.
His dust of death.
We had like several mystery characters all going at once as well, because you had Mrs. Flood, you have the one who waits, you have the boss, who was Ruby's mum, you know, before that was revealed. We had like 4 different things to latch onto. What's this going to mean? What's this going to be?
And they even loosely address that in like the episode. They go, there's this woman that you've never seen and this woman that you keep seeing. Could they be the same woman? But then it's not even directly related. It's more the idea that there was all these different strands and none of them, absolutely fucking none of them, come together.
It's established that a new variant of Susan Twist, I know the character's called Susan Triad, but I just say Twist because it's easier. Susan Twist is like made every time the TARDIS lands. There are going to be like hundreds, if not thousands, of variants of this character existing on Earth at the same time. We already see, because there's one in the Church on Ruby Road, there's one in 73 Yards, and then, you know, there's the billionaire woman that has like Triad technology. If Susan Triad is this really well-known character or figure within that universe, then why has no one made the link or found all these other variants that are existing, just chilling out?
That's a good point. I think they try and work around it saying Susan Triad, because the TARDIS landed on Earth so many times, like Susan Triad is like the culmination of all the attempts. Like every time the TARDIS lands, that old Susan Twist gets reduplicated, if you want. Like that one gets deleted and then another one gets put there.
The version of Susan we see, though, says, I have a family. So that sort of makes me think, okay, so... Because clearly that character would have existed throughout history. Like, they would have been born or whatever and just, you know, raised normally.
It was the same like thing in Dot and Bubble, where it's like, she's Lindy's fucking mum. So it's like, oh, so she can have children? Okay. So is Lindy, like, a descendant?
No, actually, I think she has to be there throughout all the times, because the Doctor says, no, it's every time I've landed on Earth. So throughout time, the version of Susan Triad is releasing that dust there and then, killing the Earth all over again.
Right.
So it's that thing of, like, he can't just go back in time where it's fine.
Do you dream about being an ambulance?
I thought that was an okay line.
No, but it's like, my point is more that doesn't make any sense. Why the fuck does he make a fucking ambulance? Like, how's that meant to cause dust of death? How's that meant to be a
Yeah,
Sutek
good
thing?
point. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Because I thought the mystery was, oh, it's this woman's face that keeps appearing everywhere. But no,
Yeah,
it's
I was like,
actually
maybe
that
it's
the
just
TARDIS
the
lands
face of the
and
ambulance.
creates
Maybe
her.
it's like the actual woman that.
Yeah, but it's like that's never addressed. But then
Yeah,
they
that's a
literally
good point.
say, "Do you dream about being an ambulance?" So they're saying that she
Yeah.
literally became an ambulance on that planet. But that doesn't make any sense because all the ambulances have her voice and face.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, the more I think about these episodes, the more I dislike them. Because I came out of the cinema experience of Empire of Death, maybe not really liking it. I was a little bit disappointed, but I think overall I had a good time and I really enjoyed myself. But the more I thought about the episode that I just consumed, the lower it went down in my estimations. To now where I'm just like, why did you make this?
Jumping right to the end, when they put the lead on Sutek, in the episode, when I was watching it, I was like, okay, like this is dumb, but like I'm not paying that much attention to it right now.
I quite like that the Mavity gloves came back.
The thing is like they have to defeat him. There is no way
Oh
around
yeah,
it. They have to
yeah,
stop the villain. Whatever way that was going to happen was going to be disappointing. Unless you do your fucking job and write a really good ending, how else are you supposed
yeah,
to stop this
yeah.
all-powerful god deity?
You can't wipe out the entire universe.
It's literally the thing. As soon as the regular cast were
Yeah,
getting dusted, well, not even that, when all of central London was getting dusted, it's like, okay,
yeah.
so this is all going to get reversed. But you knew that.
I think that can be fine if the character journey for the companion and the doctor are really strong and they come out of the other side of that having experienced some shit and that being reflected in their characterization. But I didn't really get that. Like, I feel like Ruby wasn't really shaken up by the end. It's hinted towards the doctor as a little bit, but I don't know if I fully bought it. Because he has that line about, oh, I'm going to become a monster, obviously, when he kills Sutek. But I'm like, are you though? You've returned life to all of the universe.
You stabbed that big goblin man through the heart. You're fine with
Yeah.
killing people. And
Yeah.
Sutek's like the evilest thing in the universe. Just fucking kill him. There's no drama here. It's funny when it's like, oh, the Doctor's going to really go through some shit. And then, like, after they're in the memory TARDIS watching the universe die, he has his big cry, he has his big sook. And then next time we see him, he's all happy and smiles with Sean Clifford from Fleabag. And it's like, all right, so that clearly had a lasting impact on you.
I quite like that scene. That was
Oh,
like
that's
the
a
one
great-
scene
that's
in
my
the
fa-
episode I quite like.
That's my favourite scene of the fucking finale.
Yeah. Same. I think scenes like that sort of make the whole we've destroyed all the universe thing have at least a little bit of weight. Because you're seeing how these characters are affected by it. This is adding some, maybe not stakes, but like I said, it's giving the weight. You can see how it affects the Doctor as well when she gets dusted, the child.
It was sad, it was horrible.
Yeah. I almost wish we'd seen more of that stuff, exploring these worlds,
Definitely.
instead of like just, we're in the reference TARDIS.
Oh, that memory TARDIS set is beautiful. If we'd never seen the memory TARDIS before, I'm sure that moment where they run into it would have been so much cooler and so much more like, oh, this is interesting. But because we'd seen the memory TARDIS already, it was kind of like a thing of, all right, this is here now. This is the memory TARDIS, I guess.
I think, yeah, I don't know if it translates well into the actual show, if that makes sense. There's this little thing sort of represents Doctor Who in its separate bubble, which I think, Tales of the TARDIS sort of is. You can view it as canon, you can view it as not canon. Sort of just its own little nice thing. Like, oh, we're seeing these characters come back, they're watching the show. That's nice. I don't know if the set... I think it's a really nice set. I don't know if it works as like an actual in-universe thing.
Yeah, because what happens to it after, like, they leave it in 2046, don't they? And then, presumably, according to Tales of the TARDIS, it just goes off remembering everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. As fanwank, it was cool.
I'm so fed up with fanwank. I think it's coming off the back of something like Power of the Doctor, then having the 60th, and going into season 1 thinking, I really want just this breath of fresh air. Sure, he is going to bring something new. And he did for the most part. Like, I really liked what he brought to the show. But when you get to the finale and it's just, oh, look, it's these things. These things, from the past.
Yeah.
Like, oh, although this season wasn't for me as a whole, I would have almost respected it a lot more if it was just its own thing or trying to do its own thing.
Talking about the finale has just sucked all the energy out of me.
I mean, I want to go a little bit back just to the actual Sutek reveal itself.
Oh yeah.
I think it's really bad.
Yeah.
This is just two things sound similar. Susan technology, shit reveal, doesn't make sense. Also doesn't make sense for the character of Sutek. Why would he be like, hey doctor, look, it's me? That doesn't work.
It's that idea that Russell's remembering he's remembering what Sutek was in his head as a kid, which was a all-powerful god-like creature. And then he has to actually remember, it's like, oh no, he's an Osiran from the planet Physter Osiris. He's not actually a god, he's just an immensely powerful being. And Russell just kind of had to go, well, he went into the vortex and now he's a god, so...
Yeah, he went into the vortex, the same vortex that kills him within seconds.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's like, he gets shot into the time vortex, and he's like, but it's alright, because I clung onto the TARDIS. Okay.
It's annoying, because I feel like all of the setup for Sutek latching onto the TARDIS has been there since Russell came back. There were so many in-universe reasons that you can be like, Donna spills the coffee on the console. That's when the TARDIS starts going a bit funny and starts making them noises. It's also the first appearance we see Susan Triad. And then from there, that's when you start hearing the TARDIS play up and be strange. Have it be that Sutek latched onto the TARDIS during when it was vulnerable at the end of the Star Beast.
Or even have it be a thing that's like, he's been there since Pyramids of Mars, but maybe write a reason that whatever happens, like in Wild Blue Yonder or whatever, or like
it's
suddenly,
like him reactivating or something.
Yeah.
Maybe like his essence went into the TARDIS and he's been slowly getting stronger.
Or maybe don't even have it be referenced in the 60th and have it be Sutek only starts rearing his head when he can't see Ruby's mum when the Doctor goes back in Church of Ruby Road.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of him being, at least not within the capacity that we see him in, that he literally latches onto the TARDIS as the big dog creature directly after Pyramids of Mars, which they show. Like, that's just stupid. Like, have it be that maybe he possesses the TARDIS or his energy, or like a weakened version of him.
Yeah.
And then he grows in strength or something over that time.
I don't know, it's just, I love Sutek in Pyramids of Mars, and I love the idea of Sutek coming back. Whether he should like come back in like expanded media and stuff, I don't really care. He's got a really cool mask that they don't even reference, which is a big shame.
Because it's cultural appropriation.
Oh yeah, because it's not like they say that the Osirans are the inspiration for the Egyptian gods, and not that the Egyptian gods inspired the Osirans. But then there's no mention of like Sutek was an alien and then he became a god. What my big thing was is like, we've got a whole series of new monsters. But of course, because it's Russell T Davies, we have to have a classic monster be the big bad.
Yeah, we have to bring back something. Yeah.
When it really could have just been like, just make a new god. Make a new villain. For fuck's sake. It's not that hard.
That's why I don't care about, like, Susan... No, not Susan Twister. Mrs. Flood. It probably will be the Rani at this point. Like, it is the meme, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Romana or something, you know.
Yeah. I think if the show is actively telling me not to care, then why am I going to care? At least the creatives behind the show. If they're like, they're like, none of this stuff matters, why am I going to invest like my time into, giving a shit?
Very bold of them to have the characters watch Pyramids of Mars, literally advertising, go watch a better story than this. All I can say about this finale, like, at least it got me to watch Pyramids of Mars again. I haven't watched that in years. Really nice, really good story.
It almost worsened the experience, I think, watching Pyramids of Mars before the finale. Because when you see Sutek there, who's apparently evolved into this, stronger being, and he just sits there for like half the time. Ruby runs up, puts the leash on him, the Doctor's there. Why isn't he using his mind powers that we see him using in Pyramids of Mars?
Why aren't his eyes green? Why are they red?
Stupid. Because red means evil.
Of course,
it's scary.
Of course. The whole thing of Pyramids of Mars is like, if Sutek gets unbound, if he gets unleashed, it's endgame. We're all fucked. This finale promised, this is Sutek free. This is Sutek all powerful. And then he just sits on the TARDIS the entire time.
Yeah. I thought he was going to change. I thought they'd have that for the reveal, and then in Empire they'd have him change into like a more human-bodied type. So
And he puts the mask on.
Yeah. Like, that'd be cool. It's more annoying because he could just win. He could just literally wipe out the universe and win. He destroys like pretty much everything, right? It's just that one thing, you know, who is Ruby's mum, that's stopping him.
And there's a great
Like,
line in Pyramids of Mars where he literally goes, names mean nothing to me. And then in the finale, he's like, oh, I need to know who Ruby's mum is. I'm really invested in that.
Why does he care? Why does he care? And also, why can't he find out? If he's so powerful, and the answer was that easy to get to, why can't he find out?
It's brilliant now because we can just link this to Ruby's mum. She's a fucking NHS worker. What do you mean she doesn't have a medical record? She works for the NHS.
Yeah, it's baffling. The whole thing is baffling.
I posted a review on Letterboxd of the finale, The Virgin RTD, where he's like, she's important because we think she's important, versus the Chad Moffat, I've never met anyone who wasn't important before. And it's like, they're both trying to hit the same thing, but one of them works so much better than the other one. And that's because it's like Moffat's talking about it in terms of like the Doctor meets so many people and everyone has their own story to tell, and that's what makes them important. It doesn't mean they literally gives them cosmic power that they can evade the god of death. It's more the idea, no, everyone is important, you know, everyone has a story, everyone has a life, nobody is unimportant. Whereas what Russell tries to do with the whole life is important because we give it meaning, which is like a good sentiment, but he treats it like this mystical power that actively defeats. It's not like a belief, you know, belief can be power.
You're like, okay, that's cool and all, but how does that change the memory? How does that actively change a part of time that has played out and has been recorded? How does that change that? That doesn't make sense.
And the problem is, there's not even like a hint of what it could mean.
I hate hearing Russell talk about it on the commentary as well. He's like, oh, but you can't see her face because time's cloaking her. It's just wanky bollocks.
You're literally coming up with that after you've made it because you're like, well, people will ask me this question, so I might as well just think of an answer. I said this to Jacob, it was that the reason I'm more angry at Russell doing this kind of not answering the mystery than I do at Chibnall, when Chibnall would set up things, was more the idea that Chibnall never promised that he was actually going to answer any of the things he was throwing out there. Whereas Russell actively promised that there would be reveals and told you, get invested in this. Where Chibnall never told anyone to actually get invested in anything beyond like the Timeless Child and Division and things like that. You know, everything else was more oh, that's messy.
I also just know that he can do better. I've seen him set up and pull off great reveals in the past. Like, he done it in series 1, 2, 3. Like, he's done it throughout his original tenure. So I don't know what's changed for him to kind of ignore everything that makes these great build-ups and payoffs, just to be like, oh yeah, no, it doesn't matter because I wanted to do this. I almost quite like that Ruby's mum is just a normal person. But
yeah, that's a great
how
twist.
we went around it, like, that's not how you do it. You don't just ignore all the little red herrings that are supposed to, like, throw you off and make it think that it's something bigger. You still need to explain that. You still need to explain why it snows. You still need to explain why that song inside her was so strong. You still need to explain why the memory changed. You still need to explain why, just randomly, this woman would have thought that the people taking Ruby in would check back over the CCTV to see her pointing at a lamppost that isn't in the shot, that's so not there. Stupid. It doesn't exist.
She was naming you, Ruby. Oh my!
I hate it.
God.
I hate it. But the thing is, he's done this before already. We saw it in the Star Beast. I mean, it's a little bit better in the Star Beast because you see some of the toys that refer back to the monsters. But, like, he does the whole thing in the Star Beast of, like, oh, the toys represent the monsters. And then the sign falls off the shed. Oh, and that was her memory of the TARDIS. And you're like, we didn't see that because it was covered up by a sign. That's dumb. You can't just, like, put things in and then act like, you know, they're reveals. There was no real setup to that. You can't just stick in a sign and be like, oh, yeah, that was always there. because it wasn't.
It's the funny thing that you go back to Church on Ruby Road and, like, there's no lamppost, there's no
Yeah.
sign, there's nothing. And then she doesn't do the point. Don't care, I don't care, I don't care.
It's so dumb. That's where it all falls apart, though. You're like, what? How does this work? It's quite annoying because I would genuinely say the last 10-15 minutes of this episode are actually quite good. The character stuff is actually quite strong in the finale, with Ruby reconnecting with her mum.
The thing with Ruby reconnecting with her mum, I agree with the Doctor. It's this idea that Ruby needs to find out who her birth mother is.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's not the story of every adopted person.
I agree.
It's not this big mystery for them, because it's like Carla is her mum.
Yeah.
You know, she's been her mum all her life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so why does this woman who did give birth to you, like, obviously, like, sure, if you're interested in that, go find out, but it's less of like, oh, I need to find my birth mum, I need it, it will complete me.
To be
It's
fair,
like,
I think they set it up, and something I will give Legend of Ruby Sunday is, it is said that her and Carla would watch that video every Christmas, so I imagine, like, from a young age, she's probably got into her head, who is my birth mum, why did she give me up? Because that is quite a weird thing to do, to sit down and watch your mum drop you off, or whatever, and sort of almost romanticise the idea of who is this woman. So I don't really hold anything against her wanting to find out. I did sort of think when they were first in the cafe and her mum first looks over at her, I did sort of think, this isn't going to go the way she wants it to, is it? Like, I almost thought, I can't remember Ruby's mum's name, Thingy was
Lucy,
like almost going to reject her. Oh yeah, I almost thought like she was going to reject her. Because Russell, to be fair, right, he's always been a bit shit with his payoffs and finales wrapping things up. But one thing he does do quite well is the sacrifice that follows. And I almost thought that maybe this whole thing that we've been alluding to as this great thing isn't going to be the image she built up in her head. And that was almost going to be like this isn't all that great, actually. I still thought it was done well for what it was, though. I quite like that she had a happy-ish ending. I know she's coming back.
I did like the goodbye. It's just I feel like the series just ended on a bit of a damp squib. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I like the players that are there, like Shooty and Millie, are brilliant.
Yeah.
Very inventive storytelling. I think the execution of this season has been poor, and
Yes.
it just goes back to what I said right at the beginning, where it's like, this is meant to be the big new showcase for the show, and to a brand new audience, or a bigger audience, or a wider audience, or whatever. And it's like, just showing people, it's like, this isn't what the fans want, but it's neither what the general public seems to want. You know? It just seems to be a bit of a... I don't understand why they can't just crack how to make Doctor Who these days. Ever since, you know... And I'm going to say it, ever since Moffat left.
That's the thing, as much as I wasn't always on board with his vision, he understood what Doctor Who was at its core. And he was pretty faithful for that.
I even think Chris Chibnall at points.
I think Series 11 has a very clear vision of what it wants to be, and I think it is quite Doctor Who-y. It's just not my particular taste of Doctor Who. Like, because I quite like the odd episode of Series 11.
I'd say the same thing for Flux as well. I feel like that was doing something different while staying true to Doctor Who. In my eyes, at least.
I'm not too positive on Flux, though. I think Flux is quite good. Watching season 1, I have a lot of the same faults I have with the Chibnall era. It's not even that there's too much exposition, it's like the opposite problem almost of like, could you have explained this a bit more?
Yeah.
Underdevelopment of certain things, rushing through characterization, the pacing. Like, I had all these problems with the Chibnall era.
Doesn't feel like the needle is moving on Doctor Who.
No.
Beyond that, we know we're getting more of it. And, you know, the BBC are very happy with how it's done. This show needs fresh blood. Bringing back Russell was a smart move, but I don't know if it's sustainable anymore. I don't think this vision for the show will be sustainable. This show cannot survive unless it has something new driving it. Do you know what I mean?
I don't mind Russell being there. I think he needs more people that are going to really push him on his ideas. Because even when he was writing Tennant being like a big fan of the show, he would push back on a lot of ideas that Russell would have, like the Meta-Crisis Doctor, you know, growing a TARDIS and stuff like that, or him bawling his eyes out in like his final scene. Like, I do know that Tennant was like, I don't think the Doctor would speak like this or do this or whatever. And I guess we don't have that with Shooty. Because sure, he is just happy to willingly go along. Same with all of the creatives on board. They've worked with Russell for years, you know? They've seen he can do it. So why can't he do it again? It's like, I almost wish he was challenged a bit more.
Everyone just believes because he did it once that every idea that he
Yeah.
seems to be having at the moment. I'm sure this isn't like true of everything he does, but it's like it just seems like all the showcases just people going like, "Oh, that's so good, Russell."
I think the 60th was a success on a whole. I think doing that and the ideas he had for that, that worked. It feels like he's approached season 1 the same way that he approached the 60th, where it's like, this needs to be something different now.
Yeah. This is the first season where it's like I genuinely don't know what I think about this thing as
It's
a whole.
such a mixed bag.
It's so complicated.
Because I do think Boom, 72 Yards, Dot and Bubble, Rogue are really good. You know, that's half the series. So if I'm saying half the series is really good, then clearly it's doing something right. But I don't know. It's just lacking the sauce.
Yeah, that's it, really, isn't it? It's just we need something better.
One thing that gives me a little bit of hope is that I know that Russell is only writing half of the episodes next season, so there will be 4 new writers. I don't know, because maybe Moffat will come back to write one. I know there'll at least be creators of colour on the writing team, because I know that Russell has said that in interviews. So that gives me a little bit of hope, you know,
I fucking hope so.
that we'll be getting some new blood on board.
Oh, I don't know. Can we go now?
Yeah, I've been trying to wrap it up for a bit. I don't know how to end this.
Well, we'll be back for nothing.
Yeah, no promising returns. I am glad we did this because I've sort of fallen out of love just speaking about Doctor Who. So this probably will be my only outlet for, you know, actually talking about the show.
Yeah, definitely. That's me.
yeah.
That's always been my way about it.
But buddy, what about the Universal?
Shh.